What would you sacrifice to protect something that was never really yours, and what would you risk to keep someone who was never supposed to stay? This story shows that the wait, no matter how long or painful, can absolutely be worth it. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, which Eleanor Ashby would later say was the least dramatic thing about the entire situation. She read it twice standing in the hallway of her small Edinburgh flat, still wearing her coat. A 12-week contract. Room and board included. The task: catalogue, restore, and prepare for auction the contents of Kingsford Hall, a country estate in the Scottish borders that had sat mostly untouched since the death of its previous owner. The pay was enough to cover 6 months of rent. Eleanor was a conservator. She had spent 8 years restoring things other people had given up on. She said yes before she finished the second read. What the letter did not mention was Daniel Kingsford. She met him on the gravel drive, the afternoon she arrived. He was standing beside a dusty Land Rover, looking at the house the way people look at a problem they cannot solve. He was tall, a little underdressed for the cold, and carrying the particular expression of a man who had not slept well in some time. He introduced himself as Daniel Kingsford, the owner. He shook her hand with the efficiency of someone conducting a business meeting in the wrong location. He told her the goal was simple. The estate needed to be cleared, appraised, and sold by the end of the year. He had hired a London auction house. He had hired a solicitor. He had hired Eleanor. Everyone had one job. His job, apparently, was to stay out of the way. Eleanor unpacked her equipment in a room that smelled of wood smoke and old paper, and she began. Kingsford Hall was extraordinary. Not in the glossy, magazine sense. In the way that mattered more, every room held evidence of a life lived carefully and with great feeling. The late Margaret Kingsford, Daniel's grandmother, had been a textile conservator herself. The irony was not lost on Eleanor. Margaret's collection included Flemish tapestries, Victorian embroideries, and 3 rooms of hand-annotated books that made Eleanor's hands tremble just to hold. Daniel came and went during those first 2 weeks. He spent most of his time in the estate office with spreadsheets and phone calls. Eleanor would pass him in the corridor and he would nod, ask if she needed anything, and disappear again. He was polite the way a hotel concierge is polite. Present but unreachable. Then one evening she found him in the library. He was sitting on the floor with a box of photographs in his lap, doing nothing. Just sitting. He looked up when she came in, and for one unguarded moment she saw something in his face that she recognized immediately, the specific exhaustion of someone who has been keeping themselves very busy in order to avoid feeling something large. She sat across from him. She did not ask what was wrong. She picked up a photograph from the edge of the box and looked at it. A boy, maybe 10 years old, standing in the garden with an older woman. They were both laughing at something outside the frame. "That is you," she said. It was not a question. He said yes. And then, because apparently the library at that hour had a particular effect on people, he started talking. He told her that he had grown up at Kingsford every summer until he was 17. That his grandmother was the most competent person he had ever known. That when she died 8 months ago, she left him the estate and nothing else, no instructions, no letter, no indication of what she had wanted him to do with it. He had assumed she wanted it sold. The upkeep was impossible on his own. He ran a structural engineering firm in Glasgow. He had a life that had nothing to do with this place. Eleanor listened. When he finished, she said that the house did not feel like a place someone wanted to disappear. He looked at her for a moment. Then he closed the box and said good night. After that, something shifted. It was gradual, and neither of them named it. He started appearing at different hours, not to check on progress, but to ask what she had found. She showed him things. A set of hand-stitched maps his grandmother had made of the estate gardens in different decades, tracking how the landscape had changed. A collection of correspondence between Margaret and a circle of women conservators across Europe, spanning 40 years. A small oil painting tucked behind a wardrobe in one of the upper rooms, unremarkable to the eye, but Eleanor recognized the brushwork and went very still for a long time. He noticed. He asked what was wrong. She told him she needed to make some calls. 3 days later, she had the answer. The painting was not supposed to be there. It had been reported missing from a private collection in Belgium in 1971. There were no accusations, no scandal, but the history was incomplete in a way that made Eleanor uncomfortable. She did not know yet how it had come to be in the house. And until she did, she could not in good conscience include it in the auction. She told Daniel. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said that his grandmother had spent 2 years in Belgium in the late 1960s, working as a conservator for a private family. He said the name of the family slowly, like he was remembering it for the first time. Eleanor opened her notebook. The name matched. They spent the following week going through Margaret's professional correspondence together. And that was where everything changed, not dramatically, not with a revelation that rewrote the past, but with something quieter and more unsettling. In a folder from 1969, they found documentation that Margaret had been the one to flag the painting as damaged, remove it for restoration, and then, according to a single ambiguous letter, been told by the family that it had been destroyed in a fire. The fire had been real. 3 other works had been lost. But the painting had not been in the house that night. Margaret had taken it for restoration the week before. She had saved it without knowing what to do with that fact afterward. The family had fractured after the fire. There was no one clear to return it to. Margaret had kept it for 50 years, not out of greed, Eleanor said carefully, but because she did not know what else to do with it. Daniel sat with that for a long time. I think she kept a lot of things she did not know what to do with, he finally said. Eleanor looked at him and understood that he was not only talking about the painting. She helped him contact the Belgian family's descendants through a provenance researcher she trusted. The process would take months. The painting would need to stay until it was resolved. Which meant the auction timeline was compromised. Which meant his end-of-year sale was no longer possible. He should have been frustrated. Instead, he looked, for the first time since she had arrived, slightly less like a man trying to outrun something. That night they had dinner together for the first time. Not by arrangement. She was heating soup in the kitchen when he came in, and it seemed unnecessary for either of them to pretend they would rather eat alone. She learned that he had moved to Glasgow at 17 after his parents separated. That he had not come back to Kingsford once in 11 years. That he had told himself it was because of work, of distance, of practicality. He had repeated that story so many times that he had stopped questioning it. She told him she understood. She told him she had done the same thing after her mother's death 5 years ago, kept working, kept moving, made herself indispensable to other people's histories because she could not face her own. She had become very good at restoring things that belonged to other people. He looked at her the way people look at someone who has said something true. The weeks that followed were the kind of time that feels both very slow and impossible to hold on to. They walked the grounds in the late afternoons. She showed him what she had found. He told her things about the house that were not in any record, small things, the way the stairs creaked in a specific pattern, the way the light moved across the upper landing in January. Things that had lived only in his memory. She was aware, with a clarity that was almost inconvenient, that she was falling in love with him. She was also aware that her contract had an end date. And that he had said, more than once, that he needed to go back to his real life. She did not let herself believe it would lead anywhere. That was not a fear born of low self-worth. It was a pattern she knew in herself, the way she could be fully present in a place, fully necessary, and then leave without looking back because it was always someone else's story. She had mistaken professionalism for self-protection for a very long time. In early December, he told her he had accepted an offer on the estate. Not from the auction. A private buyer. A conservation trust that wanted to turn Kingsford into a working study centre for textile heritage. The collection would stay. The house would stay. Margaret's work would become the foundation of something ongoing. Eleanor stood very still when he told her. He said the timeline meant the sale would complete in February. Which meant he needed someone qualified to oversee the transition, the cataloguing of the permanent collection, the establishment of the archive. A long-term role. 18 months at minimum. He was not looking at her the way someone looks at an employee when he said it. She asked him why he had changed his mind about selling. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said that he had spent 11 years telling himself that distance was the same as freedom. That leaving things behind was the same as moving forward. He said that someone had recently made it very clear to him, without ever saying it directly, that the things we abandon do not actually disappear. They just wait. She asked if he was offering her a job. He said he was. And then, because he was apparently a man who had decided to stop being careful, he said he was also hoping she might consider staying for reasons that had nothing to do with the collection. The answer she gave him was not immediate. She took 3 full days, which she needed. Not because she was uncertain, but because she wanted to be sure she was saying yes for the right reasons. Not because she was needed. Not because the place was extraordinary or the work was meaningful. But because for the first time in a very long time, she wanted to be somewhere specific, with someone specific, and she was not afraid of what that meant. She said yes on a Thursday morning in the kitchen, over coffee, while snow came down outside the window in that particular soft way it does in the borders, like it is in no hurry at all. He laughed, a real laugh, a little undignified, and she thought that was probably the most important thing she had seen in the entire house. The painting was returned to the Belgian family the following spring, with full documentation and a letter from Daniel explaining its history honestly and without excuse. The family wrote back. They were grateful. They asked if they might loan it to the Kingsford Study Centre for its inaugural exhibition. Eleanor and Daniel stood in the main hall on the day it went up on the wall, looking at it together. She said it looked like it had always been meant to be seen here. He took her hand. She let him.